of this award tonight has cut through narratives and form that distract us from hidden truths.
I wanted to talk about the disclaimer. Why did you decide to adapt the René Knight's novel?
Yeah, there was a film that triggered in my head as I was reading the book that, there's obvious thematic issues that the book deals with, but I was very intrigued about exploring narrative and how narrative affects us and how we can affect everybody around with our narratives.
What convinced you to turn the disclaimer into a series?
Because first I thought about that as a film, and I didn't see how it could fit in a form that, it would be maybe just the plot of it. And what I was more interested in was about exploring different narrative lines and try to give an independence to each one of those narrative lines, an integrity to each one of them. So to create different narrative lines that would follow different cinematic languages in which they are following a narrative, that they are going to be confronted with the truth that we expose at the end. Because there was a narrative that was more important, that was the theory, that is the narrative that the audience is crafting parallel to the narratives that he's been exposed to, that the audience crafts through the veil of their own judgments. So, and then how the confrontation of audiences with the truth that we reveal at the end. And that was, for me, the most interesting experiment, to call it some way. And through that, exploring different thematic elements, particularly about how we deal with our own version of ourselves.
So it's more about the length, not about the form of a series.
Well, I don't know how to do series, so I approach it as a film.
Okay.
The way that I would do a film, I approach it, I wrote it as a film. I wrote it, the whole thing, and then I just split it where there were the natural narrative modulations or thematic modulations, and I split them to create each one of the chapters. But I was not writing any different than when I write a film. And then the same process was when I was shooting it or editing it, or even doing the sound design. Everything is the way that I'm accustomed to do a film.
For disclaimer, you worked with two incredible cinematographers, Emmanuel Lubecki and Bruno de Bonnel. Why did you decide to split the work between them?
That was Lubecki's idea. Lubecki, that is my oldest collaborator, I discussed with him projects even since I have an idea. Even if it's not going to happen, but I start my discussion with Chivo. We call him Chivo. When I told him that I wanted to have all these narratives in which each one with a very specific cinematic language, he said we should have two different cinematographers to give even more contrast to each one of those cinematic languages. And the two of us immediately we thought of Bruno because we admire his work and we love him as a person. And it happened like that. And then in practice, what ended up happening is that Lubecki did everything around Cate Blanchett and the life of Cate Blanchett, around her. And Bruno did everything about Kevin Kline's narrative and his contacts with other characters.
You also decided to hire Sacha Baron Cohen in a very unusual role for him. I wonder what inspired that choice?
I know Sacha for a long time. And for a long time, we were talking about doing something together, but it was kind of understood that it was going to be a comedy. So when I was looking for the part to play Robert, the thing is I was afraid of going into the usual suspects of British actors in a series. That there are certain faces that you recognize immediately from certain kind of British films and series. Because I wanted Disclaimer to have a stamp by itself. And then the idea came to my mind of Sacha. And I spoke with him, I sent him the script. And at the beginning, he was a bit daunted because he's accustomed to work with masks. You know, he creates incredible characters and a very diverse characters, but he's always wearing a mask one way or the other. You know, call it the mask in Ali G, to put the hat and the glass, and or in Borat the mustache and stuff, but he's always kind of like creating a character from outside in, and this time he had to create a character inside out.
Some scenes in the disclaimer feels a bit like a flirtation in Y tu mamá también, and I wonder, did that cross your mind while working on the series?
Well, not really, because in Y tu mamá también, everything was kind of observing from even the camera stays remote, and you're observing a certain behavior. In disclaimer, it's a romanticization of a behavior. You know, you can see it because of the dialogue and the way it's shot. You know, that is kind of romantic, but also the music that is a little bit romantic over the top.
I know you attach great importance to the first image or first sentence or first idea when starting working on a new project. Was there any key image or key sentence behind the disclaimer?
Yeah, and actually I thought a lot about it. How was going to be that first image, and I was looking for something that would convey the idea of a narrative that is told in the book, because it was going to be about narratives, but also the idea of how the perception of a narrative that is talking about innocence and also about sex, but from the standpoint of innocence, and a character that is very kind of naive about it. So, and it was how that is going to be developed into the end.
At CAMERIMAGE, people can watch disclaimer on a big screen. Mm-hmm. I wonder how important is that rare occasion for you?
It's beautiful because, look, we worked very hard to make sure that, because knowing that this was going to be watched mostly on your television or the computer, we were very careful to make sure that it would look amazing. But I have to say that now is more and more the case, because no matter how a great life in theatrical you have for your films, it's going to be just a few months, and then people are going to start finding it in digital medias. So we work very hard on that, but we work also very meticulous to have a version for cinema that will convey all the detail that we work on during the shoot and the post-production. I think that it's incredible in a big screen to see the incredible work of Bruno Del Bonel and Emmanuel Lubezki, because you see, you know, in the bigger the screen, obviously you see more detail. But it's not only the work of Bruno and Emmanuel, it's the work also of Cate Blanchett, a character that speaks very little throughout the show, and nevertheless, everything is filled with behavioral details. You know, how the little micro movements that she employs.
Well, I guess this is the time for my last question. So I wanted to ask you
for more.
I wanted to ask you, what are you planning to do next?
I have no idea. Well, next is a beach and a hammock, and hopefully some inspiration for something will come. What I'm certain, at least at this stage, is that I want it to be short, under an hour and a half, and I want it to be fun. Let's see if that changes, but right now, that's what I would like to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.